Hello, everybody. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of What's It To Ya with Carter and Jack. A lot to get to on tonight's show. The NFL playoffs continue to roll along. We'll talk about who impressed us most in the divisional round and our picks for the Super Bowl. Who will be playing at MetLife Stadium? Our calls are dead ahead. Also, in the social media question of the week, who will be the first men's college basketball team to fall from the ranks of the unbeaten? And who's going to stay there the longest? Plus, in the debate of the week, how long should the playoffs really be in the NBA and the NHL? Plus, my parting shot, What's It To Ya, starts right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to What's To Ya again with Jack Worth. I am Carter Woodiel. So great to have you with us tonight. We're going to start, as I said, with the NFL. The divisional round was not exactly as exciting as the wild card round, wouldn't you say? But still, some great teams in action. We saw the Seahawks defeat the Saints 23-15. The Patriots ran over the Colts by a score of 43-22. The 49ers topped the Panthers 23-10. And the Broncos beat the Chargers 24-17. Jack, this was a weekend of favorites performing really well. Which impressed you the most? What's the most impressive win of the divisional round?
Well, a weekend of favorites winning across the board is not something we've been used to seeing in the NFL playoffs these last couple weeks. So you look at these wins and you go, they don't jump off the paper you right away as being impressive because, the teams went out and mostly did what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But when we look at teams sort of exceeding expectations, the Patriots were favored to win, but I don't think anyone saw coming the ground game that the Patriots deployed on the Indianapolis Colts. Tom Brady did not throw a single touchdown. The Patriots scored 43 points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the Patriots have this new dimension to their offensive attack that we haven't seen really in years, I'm not saying this is the best rushing game the Patriots have ever had, but what we saw last weekend was surely out of the ordinary. So you have to be nervous if you're the Broncos. To me, that stands out. I know the Colts' run defense is incredibly weak, but that stands out to me as a really impressive win.
Yeah, Tom Brady is very good. Tom Brady with a good running game to lean on and provide balance to that offense is very, very good. This is something that makes the Patriots a really scary team to play. And like you said, LeGarrette Blount isn't going to rush, for 4 touchdowns every single game. He's going to regress, and he's going to face a defense that's better at stopping the run in the Indianapolis Colts in the next round. But if he can play a fraction of the way he did against Indy, then this Patriots team is going to be hard to stop. Wouldn't you think? I mean, I was really impressed by this.
Well, of course, because like you said, Brady's so good. Brady doesn't need any help. But when you put in the mind of the Broncos defense that they need to start coming up to the line of scrimmage, playing against that run, and the play-action passing game is opened up for a quarterback like Brady who doesn't even need that to succeed, it becomes really scary that the possibilities that he can, because he's going to need to put up points. Playing against Peyton Manning, playing against the Denver offense with no shortage of weapons at wide receiver. But if the Patriots can run the ball and then Brady can utilize play action, that's how they put up those extra points to keep up with Denver.
I think we both wanted to see Andrew Luck do a little bit better than he did in this game for Indianapolis. But another young QB, Colin Kaepernick of the 49ers. While this game, you mentioned, earlier off the air that you could have slept through this one. But it's still a great performance. And, we're not going to forget for a long time mocking Cam Newton's celebration with the Superman in the end zone. I mean, what do you think of that?
Colin Kaepernick is not a good enough quarterback to have his own touchdown dance. Fact. Elaborating on that, Colin Kaepernick is not nearly a good enough quarterback to mock another's touchdown dance and then perform his own. That is all I have to say on the subject. Let's go back to the Patriots game. Let's talk about that upcoming matchup with the Denver Broncos. First thing going through my head is Patriots won the first one. Patriots just played a great game. It's Tom Brady. I'm starting to give the edge to the Patriots in my head. Then I think, well, they are the Denver Broncos, and they did have the best record in the American Football Conference, and Peyton Manning is going to win the MVP, and they have an incredible receiving core. But then I'm like, but that's what everyone wants you to think. That's what Belichick wants you to think. because he knows that he's going to win anyway. So I've saying this is too close to call, and I will make my pick. I need 90 more seconds to think.
Okay, all right. I will let you think while I explain my pick. I call it a gut feeling, but I feel like the Patriots are going to walk away with this win. You mentioned that they beat the Broncos, but we all know that game, it was at home. You know, it was in Foxborough, while this game is going to be obviously at Mile High. And it was just, I think the one thing that we came away from that game knowing a little bit more about was that these are two incredibly evenly matched teams. That was really the takeaway from that game.
And even the way the game finished on, you know, something that on the botched punt is like, you're almost getting cheated out of a real victor, because you're like, you look at, maybe you go into that game saying, well, this could give us a preview of the playoffs. They essentially played to a tie, and then the Patriots won on a freak play that, you know, maybe this time it goes to the Broncos. There's no way to predict. All that game told us that these are such evenly matched teams.
Yeah. But, you know, if you're in a really tough situation, really tight playoff situation, I don't know who you'd rather have on your sideline than Bill Belichick. You know, I mean, if it's going to come down to a coach's decision, if it's going to come down to whether to go for it on fourth down or something like that, I think that in this type of extremely close scenario, it's even more important to have a really talented coach, which the Patriots obviously do.
And I agree, and I think Belichick, you know, Bill Simmons once said, to pick the winner of any playoff game, you rate the quarterback from 1 to 10, you rate the coach from 1 to 10, you add the two numbers together, and whichever team is higher, there's the win. Going by that method, Brady and Belichick and the Patriots win the Super Bowl every year. I don't know if that's a coincidence. Simmons obviously a huge Patriots fan, but it's hard to go against that logic because, like you said, if it comes down to, you know, the situations at the end of the game, you want Brady throwing your passes and you want, you know, Belichick calling your plays.
But who are you picking, Jack?
I'm gonna pick. Whoever I pick.
Don't
whoever
stall,
I pick
Jack.
will
Don't
be
stall
wrong.
on me now. Yeah, right. Okay.
Whoever, you know, the other team should be wanting me to pick against them, but I'm gonna say Patriots by 1 point.
Okay, a 1 point game.
Field, unless this is my unless.
Okay.
The Broncos sneak Eli Manning onto the field in Peyton's jersey.
Hey, the last name would still be correct, right?
Exactly. So they wouldn't know.
Yep.
And everyone knows that Eli Manning can't win games unless they're in the Patriots against the playoffs. And he still remains the only player in the NFL that Bill Belichick has nightmares about.
That's true, yeah. If he sleeps at all, really, who knows? But what about the other game? Boy, I can't wait to watch this NFC title game.
Oh, this is the later game. So after, you know, the thrilling Broncos-Pats game, you know, you'll be ready to go to sleep, but don't do that. You've got Seahawks 49ers, which I think is also a great game, a totally different type of game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
These teams, you know, when we talk about West Coast football, the West Coast offense, the 80s and 90s, these teams are they're as far from that as possible, built on defense. They've got great running games with a passing game that sort of plays off of how strong the running game and the defense are. But they're teams that, aside from being very well, you know, similarly matched up on the field, it's going to be an even game, of course. They're teams that are very similar personnel-wise. They try to do the same thing. They're defensive-focused teams that want to run the ball, and they have quarterbacks that can run the ball too, and whose passing is, you know, that's theoretically how you beat them. You force Kaepernick or force Wilson to, you know, throw the ball and beat you, because if they have any weakness, that's where it is. But these are obviously two very strong teams. I like the Seahawks, though. Mm-hmm. Seahawks really showed holding the Saints to 15. Not 55, that'd be totally different. Holding the Saints to 15 points really impressed me. I think they've got the offense that can score on the 49ers, and I'm not a Kaepernick believer. You know that.
Yeah, you're not as high on Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers in general as I am. I know we talked about this last week on the show, and I said out of the road teams that were playing last weekend, I thought the 49ers had the best chance to go all the way. But I agree with you. I think the Seahawks are going to win this game. I think this is an easier call than with Broncos-Patriots, like you said, because these teams are so similar. And it's easier to kind of see where they measure up against each other. I think it's kind of anything that the Niners can do, the Seahawks can do better. I think Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick. I think they have a better defense than the Seahawks do over the 49ers. So I think the Seahawks get the edge. But I think that this is going to be a really fun game to watch, just because these are two, whether you like them or not, fun quarterbacks to watch and fun football teams to watch.
They are. It's going to be, it's going to be a good game. I'm going to say Seahawks 20, Niners 16. It's going to be low scoring, but I think it comes down to the fact that Kaepernick, when he gets into these situations where he doesn't read defenses as well as you'd like him to, and he starts to run around, and that's not what you want to see against a defense as good as the Seahawks. That they should be able to handle that better. I know that Carolina has a great defense as well, but I think Carolina's defense stronger in the rushing game. They've got a great run defense. When you look at the Seattle defense, their secondary is absolutely fantastic. So if you talk about, they don't have to drop guys into coverage because they can play one-on-one man defense with their corners who are so good, lock down San Francisco receivers, and still be able to, have a linebacker spying on Kaepernick. So I like the Seahawks in that one. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great weekend. But now let's go over to baseball. We haven't touched baseball yet on the show. And the news in baseball, not news that we would have expected to take the headlines going into the offseason. It's not it's not a new acquisition by a big team. But it's actually a loss by a big team. It's the New York Yankees. They're going to lose A-Rod for the season, suspended for the whole game. So he's not going to play this year. Will he play going forward? Will we ever really see A-Rod on the diamond again?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the odds are certainly stacked against him if he's the average Joe MLB player. A-Rod's going to be, 39 years old at 8 months, I believe. When opening day 2015 rolls around, he's finally allowed to play again. He's not going to be able to play in the minors or in several foreign leagues because they honor the suspensions put in by Major League Baseball. But because he's Alex Rodriguez, because people are going to pay to come see him and watch him on TV more, I don't think that there's not going to be a team, whether it's the Yankees or somebody else, that's going to pass up A-Rod. If the Yankees are going to come in and buy him out or just release him and say, just don't play for us again. If I'm the Miami Marlins, A-Rod's hometown, really nothing else for the fans to come see in Miami. They don't come at all. More people will surely come if Alex Rodriguez is playing for them. I think he has to play in the majors again.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see a situation in 2 years where A-Rod, let's theoretically say the Yankees don't want him. So, he's bought out or released by the Yankees. I have a hard time, believing that 29 major league teams are just like, nah, we don't want him.
Right. It's really, I want to hear what you think about this suspension, because this is, as I'm sure you've heard, the longest doping suspension that's ever been handed down in the history of Major League Baseball. Alex Rodriguez has vehemently denied every accusation. He says it's been against him from day one. He did not take steroids as a New York Yankee. But everybody else is saying different things. We saw Anthony Bosch, who was the guy who gave him the drugs, who gave him this regimen, allegedly, of performance enhancers, go on 60 Minutes, tell these crazy stories about drawing A-Rod's blood in a nightclub stall, being threatened, having a death threat by one of Alex Rodriguez's people, somebody of his ilk. It's an incredible story.
It's an incredible story, and I think A-Rod's going to take this to court. Like you said, he's gonna fight the suspension. Which, honestly, I think at this point we're all sort of over. As A-Rod can deny taking steroids or performance-enhancing drugs as much as you want, I think, the country is sort of the belief that everyone in baseball, Anthony Bosch included, is not out to get Alex Rodriguez. There's not some massive conspiracy.
Well, I mean, I would argue with the fact that they're not out to get Rodriguez. Because it seems to me like Major League Baseball really wanted to bring him down. They hired, a bunch of former FBI agents to investigate the biogenesis clinic, mostly to get Alex Rodriguez off the field. And that, you could say that that's a really good thing. It's the strictest, drug program in American sports. They want to make a statement. They want to make an example out of Alex Rodriguez. But they really have been targeting him pretty darn hard.
Well, I think there's a difference between targeting him and then just making up. I think what I'm trying to say is that where Rodriguez denies any accusations that he took drugs, I think we can all agree that A-Rod, took these substances. I don't think it was made up by Major League Baseball.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, he'll be suspended for the season. He'll probably miss time 2015, just the beginning of the season, rehabbing, probably playing in the minors. But, he'll be back on the field, in my opinion. If you read into it a little bit, Bosch talked about how A-Rod was obsessed with 800 home runs.
Yeah,
that was his
club.
drive.
Wow.
He wanted to be the founding member and only member of the 800 home run club. Is that possibility out the window? I really don't see.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
I don't see A-Rod hitting 800 home runs.
No. Yeah, and the general consensus around baseball is that when he takes this to federal court, it's not going to end up well for him. But I think we agree. when he comes back to the diamond, if he comes back to the diamond, we'll all have our eyes glued, as always, on Alex Rodriguez. We want you to keep your eyes glued on your television set as we head for our one and only break. When we come back, we're talking college basketball and how big should the playoffs be in the NBA and the Hockey League. We've got different opinions. Stick around.
Be careful making wishes in the dark, can't be.
Slow down.
Slow down and move over.
And move over.
When you see lights, vests,
Or reflectors.
Please, give us some room. Slow down and move over.
when you need us.
We've got your back.
Do you have ours?
You got our back?
You got ours? You got our back? Please, slow down.
And move over.
My songs know what you did in the dark.
And welcome back to What's Due Ya. As promised, we have returned. I'm Carter Woodiel alongside Jack Worth. We're now going to move to our social media question of the week. This one comes via Facebook. Eric asks, which of the remaining men's college basketball unbeatens will lose first? And what are the unbeaten's postseason prospects? We looked at the postseason prospects, and I think we both agree that in college basketball, you have no idea how a team's going to perform in the NCAA tournament until March. Obviously, all of the remaining unbeaten teams are going to make the NCAA tournament, but we'll see what happens then. But who's going to lose first? The four unbeaten teams: Arizona, Syracuse, Wisconsin, and Wichita State, which is kind of the oddball of the group in the Missouri Valley Conference. I want to hear your thoughts on this, Jack. Who do you think will fall from the ranks first?
Okay, well, I mean, looking at the schedule of the next week or so, what jumps off the page that was the Wisconsin Badgers, obviously the toughest road in the next couple games. If we're taking bets, I would put money on Wisconsin to lose first, purely because they play the other toughest teams. But I think if the question's more about which unbeaten team is more likely to slip up, then I'm turning my eyes to the Syracuse Orange. The Syracuse were tested by Miami at home. They play the same Miami team on the road this time in a couple days. Obviously, they play big rival Pitt coming up soon, and then the big game at the Dome against Duke. Duke not looking as good as they did maybe early in the season when that matchup was announced. But Syracuse has got some tough games, and I think if we're talking about teams that could slip against a weaker team, the Orange are at the top of my list.
I think what makes this a really interesting conversation, though, is looking at Wichita State, because their schedule in the Missouri Valley is not hard. It's Indiana State, Illinois State, Drake, Evansville, Indiana State again. There are no big marquee teams here, but we're not going to sit here and say that Wichita State's going to go undefeated. So they're going to. I really think they're going to have to lose in conference play at some point. The question is, when is it going to come? Maybe at Indiana State on February 5th, but this is a team that needed overtime to beat Missouri State, I believe. Missouri State, on the road. So it could happen at any time with the Shockers.
It could. And I mean, because, with all due respect to the Missouri Valley Conference, Wichita State should run away. They will run away with the conference.
Right.
They should win the conference tournament with ease. They should go undefeated. Whether that happens, they might lose. They might slip up and lose one. But it's just that there's no team on the schedule that jumps out and you say, you know what, right there, that's the game that they're going to have trouble with. It's sort of like which game against which opponent that's having a really good day does Wichita State just simply have a bad day? Because they're not going to play any marquee teams. They're going to play teams that they are significantly better than and that they should win. But if they end the season 33-1 instead of 34-0, but it's just hard to pinpoint who that one slip up is going to come against. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's funny how we haven't mentioned the best team there, the number one ranked basketball team, the Arizona Wildcats. They're a team that, if Wichita State wasn't there, I think you'd bet would be the team to go the longest without losing among this group. And I would say that they're the favorite to win the title out of this bunch.
Well, they're the early favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one. It's January, like you said, it's
right.
January. But yeah, well, Arizona will probably talent-wise the best team in the country. A lot of people would say. And then when we take a look at this question, after Wichita State, I'd say they have the easiest slate of upcoming games when compared to Wisconsin or Syracuse. So when you look at the fact that they've got the talent, they've got the schedule. Arizona could, I would be very surprised if they didn't, continue this unbeaten streak to 20, 25 games.
It's going to be an exciting end to the season, as always in college basketball.
But college basketball is the second best type of basketball, Carter. That's not the debate this week.
I disagree with that.
We've had that debate. It will be recycled at some point because it's not done. But
okay, all right.
Different debate, National Basketball Association. Is the playoffs too long? Are the playoffs too long? I apologize. And we look at the same with the National Hockey League. 8 teams from each conference, that's 16 teams overall make the playoff, more than half of the league. Carter, I know you have a problem with this.
I don't like this at all. You should not have more than half of the league make the playoffs. You should not be looking at a team that's below 500, that has lost more games than it has won, and say, this is a playoff team. This is a team that deserves to make the cut that you make at the end of the season and contend for a title. It's stupid. And these teams, it's not like these teams go out and win every time. In the NBA, since the 2004-2005 season, no NBA champion has been seeded below third in their conference. No one below the 3 seed has won the title since 04-05. Since the same time in the NHL, that was a lockout. Only one team outside of the top 4 seeds in their conference has won the Stanley Cup. That was the Kings against the Devils in 2012. These teams should not be there. These teams are not winning and going on magical runs that are extremely entertaining once they get there. I don't understand why they should be there at all. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, first of all, when we have to look at alternative scenarios. Some people would say 6 is a magic number. The truth of the situation is, in a sport where you have series that are multiple games, you can't start giving teams 2-week buys. So the 3 can play the 6 in a 7-game series, and suddenly the Miami Heat haven't played basketball in 2 weeks. So if you're not going to have an 8-team series, eight teams from each conference, you're going to have 4. But I just don't see why. I think it's more entertaining seeing 8 teams, seeing that 4 versus 5 matchup, which is always good, 3 versus 6 matchup.
Okay. But all of the matchups are going to be good if you go for a 4-team playoff, or if you have like a smaller series at the end that plays up to the bye week team. They're all going to be good.
Exactly.
They're all going to be entertaining.
But those series are still there if you leave 8 teams, but you have more. I'm not complaining with more basketball or more hockey.
But it just goes on for so long. There comes a point where there's so much of it that the rest of the playoffs, it brings down the rest of the playoffs. I'm not okay with a hockey playoffs that lasts 61 days. That's how long it lasted in 2012, last time they had a regular season. 61 days. From April 11th to June 11th. 2 months. I'm not going to wait 2 months for a postseason. I feel like if you want everything to stand out and be, a memorable postseason, it shouldn't take 2 months to complete. That's insane.
No, but I don't agree. I think that NHL playoffs are some of the most exciting, exciting games in sports. Regardless of the sport, I have no problem going 61 days. When we talk about that last time that we had a regular season when the Kings went on the run to win the cup. The Rangers, my team, went to the Eastern Conference Finals, 1 round from the final, and it wasn't like by Game 6 of the Eastern Conference, I was like, all right, are we done here yet? It's captivating, especially if you're a fan of one of those teams. Like the Los Angeles Kings went on a stunning run that year. That was a thrilling year. It's only the second time that an American captain won the Stanley Cup. It wasn't like, it is June. Can they hurry up with these games? No, it's captivating. It's fantastic.
But I feel like people emphasize just how exciting playoff hockey is because regular season hockey is not nearly as exciting. I feel like if you're the NHL, put some of this excitement, take it out of the playoffs where it's got plenty of excitement to deal with, and put it into the regular season. Make the regular season games where teams are battling, say change the overtime rules, make it a 10-minute overtime. Now you've got teams battling in overtime for a playoff spot, for a spot in the postseason. And I think that's the same excitement without saying, oh, here's a below 500 team, or or the equivalent in the NHL with the point system, and saying, okay, they deserve to make the playoffs.
Well, I mean, that's a different argument, though. If we talk about amending the league structure, which in the NHL, which I think we agree on, that's different. If we're talking about the fact that it simply is too long, and not that there are too many teams. A couple years ago, the NBA switched that first round format from a best of 5 to best of 7. Personally, I would have preferred a best of 5. I agree. You don't need to see the number 1 seed play the number 8 seed for 7 games. I think that series can usually be determined in 5 games. But I have no problem with 16 teams making the playoffs. To me, I think that's a good amount. It is more than half.
It dilutes the regular season. It turns the regular season into a seeding process.
Well, but it's a different question again. I think I would not be averse to changing the NBA or NHL season to 66 games.
Okay, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you decrease the size of the playoffs, which is changing the structure of the playoffs, that automatically is going to make the regular season more entertaining.
Yeah, but I would rather have an 82-game season, 8 teams make the playoffs. And then because that makes the playoffs more entertaining.
No, it doesn't.
Because there's more playoff basketball.
But the playoff basketball that you're getting is you're getting, okay, now you have a 1 versus 8 seed. Like you said, that's not very exciting. That's what you're getting.
That's okay. One of the 4 extra series of 1 versus 8. The other series are 4 versus 5, which is always a great series.
But that's going to be replaced by 2 versus 3.
Which you still get in the next round.
Okay, but all right. Well, obviously we're not getting anywhere with this debate. But here's something that I am not happy about is we're running out of time. We're going to move to my parting shot for this. Something that's really been bugging me. It's something that I was thinking about when I was lying in my room dreaming that it wasn't wintertime and that baseball was still being played and that we had anything to talk about besides doping scandals. And I thought about the plague that has been seeping across Major League Baseball recently, specifically with Major League uniforms. Of course, I'm talking about high socks. The players don't wear them anymore. We went back to when baseball first started, turn of the 19th or turn of the 20th century. Everybody wore high socks. High socks were so ubiquitous that teams were named after them. Look at these Chicago White Sox, these Cincinnati Red Stockings, the Boston Red Sox. They were all named such because their players wore high socks and their players looked really good. And nowadays, you have to look really closely to find anybody who wears them at all. Doesn't make any sense to me. Check this out. Look at this picture of Ichiro. Ichiro, I mean, he's a classy guy in every respect, but look at the Yankee pinstripe he's wearing. Best uniform in all sports, by the way. Look at how the high socks complement the uniform. They match the hat. They make it all look classy. They make it look like a baseball uniform. You look at that and say, that is a baseball player. Now it's like a Ryan Howard. Look at that. His pants are so loose and so long that they are going underneath the heel of his cleats. If I'm not mistaken, Ryan Howard is going to be stepping on his pants after he runs the bases. This does not make you look like a ball player. This makes you look like you don't care. If I'm Bud Selig, I am changing the rules tomorrow. I am making high socks mandatory across all of Major League Baseball. Because if you are a big-time ball player, you've got to look the part. That's my take. What's it to you? And that's the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching this evening. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know there's a subscribe button right up there. You should probably click on it. I mean, just some advice for you. And remember to continue to send us your opinions and your questions on Twitter and Facebook. You can look right down there at the bottom of your screen for exactly where to go. We'll be back next week. Until then, take care.